Hello students, welcome back to our channel Physiology Redefined. In the last video, I talked about the change of the membrane potential in response to the subthreshold stimulus, and there I talked about the graded potential. If the subthreshold stimulus is applied on the cell or cell membrane, then there is a slight change of the potential difference across the cell membrane, and this slight change in response to subthreshold stimulus is localized, not propagated from the site of origin of the stimulus beyond that site, with very small magnitude, and that can be summated. And that type of potential difference across the cell membrane in response to the stimulus, subthreshold stimulus, is known as the graded potential. Now, what's happened if we apply threshold stimulus on the cell membrane? So, if we apply the subthreshold stimulus, lower intensity of the stimulus on the cell membrane, it will not evoke or generate any response. But if we apply the threshold stimulus, higher intensity stimulus on the cell membrane, then we can get the response. Cell will respond, and that is the important characteristics of the cell or the living beings. And this change of the potential difference across the membrane in response to application of the threshold stimulus is known as the action potential. So in this video, I will talk about this type of membrane potential in response to application of the threshold stimulus, which is known as the action potential. So we will talk about action potential, and basically in this video I will deal with the phases of the action potential. Phases of the action potential. So what's happened? As I told, if a cell membrane outside, inside, this is stimulated. So as I told earlier also, electrical source. So if from the electrical source, two electrodes are applied, two electrodes are placed on the cell membrane, and these are the stimulating electrode. And whatever changes are taking place on the membrane, that can be recorded by placing two electrodes, one in the outside and another is in the inside of the membrane, and those are known as the recording electrode. So these recording electrodes are connected with the cathode ray oscilloscope. So stimulus is applied at this end, and whatever changes are initiating across the membrane, that will be detected by the help of the recording electrode, which are connected with the cathode ray oscilloscope. Now, if this recording is done, then what type of change of the membrane potential will take place? As I told, in the initially resting condition, cell membrane was electronegative and outside was electropositive. This is in case of resting condition. So if a stimulus of subthreshold intensity is applied, there is a sudden and momentary change of this potential difference. And what change is? It is the complete reversal. That means this side will be electropositive, this inside will be electropositive, and the outside will be electronegative. Outside will be electronegative. So this reversal, very sudden and momentary, transient reversal of the membrane potential from inside electronegativity to the electropositivity in response to the threshold stimulus is known as the action potential. So, what is action potential? What is action potential? So, this is the transient change, very transient or momentary changes, transient changes of the membrane potential, transient changes of membrane potential. And what type of change? It is the reversal, complete reversal. That is from inside electronegativity to inside electropositivity, and this is induced in response to application of threshold stimulus, higher intensity stimulus, threshold stimulus. So such change, momentary change of the membrane potential across the membrane in response to application of the threshold stimulus, that will evoke a response, because this will propagate from this part. Here stimulus is applied at this part, and this will be propagated beyond the site of stimulus. So whatever changes will be there, whatever membrane potential changes will be there, that will not remain confined here, that will not localized here, that change will pass from this part to this part, from the site of origin beyond the site of origin. So these changes will be propagatory in nature. So these changes will be propagatory in nature. So this is known as the action potential. So action potential is the transient changes of the membrane potential across the membrane, which is inside positivity in respect to outside, which is just opposite to that of the resting condition, and that is evoked, that is generated in response to the application of the threshold stimulus. And once these changes will be initiated, this will not confined within the site of origin of the stimulus, it will be propagated from that part beyond that part, and thereby will be able to generate the response, evoke the response, and this is why this is known as the propagatory in nature. So this is about the action potential. Now to initiate these changes of the membrane potential, even though it is very sudden changes, even though it is very transient changes, transient reversal from electronegativity to electropositivity, this takes place in phases, in steps. What are those phases? So next is the phases of the action potential, different phases or different steps. So suppose this is the curve, minus 90 is the 90 millivolt is the resting membrane potential value, Now, if a stimulus is applied, threshold stimulus is applied, then what's happened? Initially, within a very short time, there is no change of the membrane potential. That means it will be minus 90 millivolt. After that, there is a gradual fall of the membrane potential up to minus 70 to 75 millivolt. Up to minus 70 millivolt, there is up to minus 70 millivolt, there is a very gradual fall of the electronegativity from the minus 90 millivolt to the minus 70 millivolt. Electronegativity is getting decreased from minus 90 to minus 70 gradually. And after that, what's happened? Once the minus 70 millivolt is achieved, membrane potential of minus 70 millivolt is achieved, there is a very sharp fall of electronegativity, overshoot zero, and will reach to plus 35 millivolt. Within a very short period, there is a sharp fall of electronegativity from minus 70 to 0, overshoot 0, and then after that what's happened? There is again fall of the rapid fall of the electropositivity, and then gradual fall of the electropositivity, which will go beyond the resting membrane potential, then again come to the baseline or resting membrane potential. So these are the different phases in which the potential difference changes across the membrane in response to the threshold stimulus. So what are these stages? First stage is known as the polarized stage of the membrane. Now this second phase, this green color and the blue color phase, these are collectively known as the depolarizations phases of the action potential, depolarizations. And in this depolarization phase, initially, as I told, there is slow change of the membrane potential from minus 90 to minus 70. At minus 70, from the minus 70, some changes takes place, because of which there is a very sharp fall of electronegativity and goes to plus 35 millivolt, and this level is known as the firing level or critical level. And this is the phase which is known as the downward reflection of the curve. This is known as the third phase, which comprised of two subphases. In the first one is very rapid, that is the 3A. In the second one is comparatively slow, which is known as the 3B. And finally, the potential goes beyond the resting membrane potential value, and this phase is the fourth phase of the action potential. So let us see now what are the name of these phases and what are the different causes of these four phases. So first phase, as I told, is the number one phase or phase one. Phase one is known as the polarized phase. phase or resting phase. Polarized phase or resting phase. So why it is polarized phase? Because in this phase, resting membrane potential is maintained. That means inside electronegativity, and how much in the electronegativity? Minus 90 millivolt electronegativity. So this is this polarized phase means the polarized state of the membrane means in this condition membrane becomes inside electronegative, outside electropositive, as or like that of the resting membrane potential. So the factors which are responsible for resting membrane potential are responsible for this polarized phase. So polarized phase, this is basically is the maintenance of resting membrane potential. Maintenance of resting membrane potential. So in this phase, resting membrane potential is getting maintained, and thereby no change of the potential difference across the membrane. It remains minus 90 millivolt. Now what's happening in the phase 2? Second one is the phase 2. Here what's happened? Initially, this phase is known as the depolarization. Depolarization. So depolarization means in this case the polarized state of the membrane is disturbed. Inside in the polarized condition it was minus 90 inside electronegative, but now it will become plus 35. So polarized state is getting disturbed, is disbalanced, and this is why this phase is known as the depolarization phase. So in this depolarization phase, what's happened? Initially, there is a slight entry. In this case, there is a slight entry of sodium ion take place. Slight entry of sodium ion takes place. Very slowly, sodium ion starts entering inside. As the sodium ion starts entering inside, there is a gradual fall of the electronegativity, and this gradual fall of the electronegativity ultimately will reaches a value that is minus 70 millivolt, which is known as the firing level or critical level. Once at firing level is achieved, or critical level of minus 70 millivolt approximately is achieved, there is at this part there is a very rapid entry of sodium ion takes place. Rapid entry of sodium ion takes place. As rapid entry of the sodium ion takes place, rapidly membrane becomes electropositive, so it becomes around plus 35 millivolt. So in the depolarization phase, what's happened? Initially slight changes of the potential, slight changes of resting membrane potential, and that is due to slow entry of sodium ion. Very slowly sodium ion entry. How long? Till the value reaches at critical level or firing level. Critical level or firing level. And once the firing level is achieved, now there is a very rapid entry of sodium ion. Rapid entry of sodium ion takes place, and this rapid entry of the sodium ion is responsible for rapid reversal of negativity inside to electropositivity inside. That means minus 90 millivolt will be reversed to plus 35 millivolt, and this phase is known as the depolarization phase. Now in that once it reaches at plus 35 millivolt, the curve starts go down, and this phase is collectively known as the phase 3. Phase 3. This phase is known as repolarization phase or repolarization. This one is known as repolarization. Repolarization. So after depolarization there is repolarization. So in this case again you can see the potential difference changes from plus 35 towards the electronegativity, but initially very rapidly and then it is slowly. So this repolarization, that means in this case this one, both these things are basically due to, this is due to exit of potassium ions, from inside to outside. So repolarization is basically due to exit of potassium from inside to outside. Initially slowly, initially very rapidly. So there is a initial rapid exit of potassium ion, from inside. So this rapid entry of the potassium ion inside, that is the phase 3a. This is known as the rapid repolarization. So 3a is known as rapid repolarization. This 2 is known as depolarization, and this 1 is known as the polarized state of the membrane. Now, after certain period, the potassium exit becomes slow, and this is why curve is gradual. There is a gradual fall of gradual reappearance of the electronegativity inside. So this is later what's happened? The slow exit of potassium ion from inside, and this slow exit of potassium ion in the third half, in the second half of the depolarization phase, this is the 3b. This phase is known as the after depolarization or negative after potential. After depolarization or negative after potential. Now here you see at this particular part the minus 90 millivolt is achieved, but in this case phenomenon doesn't stop. Here what's happened? Resting membrane potential further increases from minus 90 to, for example, minus 100, and this is the phase, that is phase 4. This is the phase which is known as the hyperpolarization. So this is the phase, or the last phase, that is the phase 4, is known as the hyperpolarization. So this is the phase which is known as the hyperpolarization. And this hyperpolarization, that means more resting membrane potential beyond minus 90, is basically due to, this is due to more electronegativity. This is due to excess exit of the potassium ion. Exit of the potassium ion. More potassium ion goes out, as more potassium ion, more positive ion goes out, the resting potential value becomes further increased from minus 90 to, for example, minus 100. And this phase is known as the hyperpolarizations. And ultimately, curve will come back to the original value of minus 90 millivolt, and that phase is the polarized state of the membrane, and that phase is again known as the polarized phase of the membrane, that is the phase 1. So this is how, in response to stimulus, the phases of the action potential will go on cyclically. So this is all about the phases of the action potential. Details of these things will be available in the description box. Thank you.